Hey, what's up, Duck fans? Allow me, if you will, to get a little dangerous and talk about DuckTales 2017, the Season 3, Episode 12, 1 hour special. Let's get dangerous. The Darkwing Duck special. And this has been long awaited, as Darkwing Duck is such a popular character, especially for those born around the time of the 90s, like I was. It's such an ingrained part of my childhood, and I was so happy to see it here. As we actually have Scrooge heading over to St. Canard, much to this dismay of Bradford Buzzard, who is just like, look, Taurus Bulba, it's a lost cause. His inventions are dangerous and costly, but Scrooge is having none of it. He's all in for whatever Taurus Bulba is trying to create because he has faith, basically. He has faith that it might be something worthwhile. And I love that, because Taurus Bulba is a notorious villain in the world of Darkwing Duck. But you know, whereas he is seen here as a incredible, brilliant scientist, we know, at least the previous fans of the previous series know, he's a diabolical villain. And it's so interesting that Huey just idolizes him to a certain extent. But, Bradford very much is trying his damnedest to just shoot this plan down. Meanwhile, it's obvious that Launchpad and Dewey are heading off to visit none other than Darkwing Duck. And I love the shot of him against the moon. It's just like, oh, so ominous, so cool. And then immediately he ends up falling off the bridge. It is fantastic and so on brand. And the title card, oh my god. Purple once again, just like the other Darkwing Duck crossover. And they don't even do the intro because it's just like, no, you want to get to the goods. You want to get to the good stuff. You want to get dangerous. As they meet up with Taurus Bulba, who in here is actually played by someone who I wasn't actually expecting. He's played by none other than James Monroe Englehart, who, if you don't know who that is, he played Strongbow in the Tangled the Animated Series. I love him. And not to mention, he is very diehard Disney alumnus, as he played the genie on the stage performance of Aladdin. And let me tell you, if you had any other genie, I'm sorry, Will Smith, but James Englehart does a fantastic job as the genie. I love his voice. He is such a great singer. And, the friendly persona that they're portraying here is done a great service by Englehart's performance because he has such a friendly voice, but he can also be intimidating where you need him to be. And, he pops up as a fan of Scrooge McDuck and the boys at that, even knowing who Huey is, about his entire history with the Junior Woodchucks, and Louie with Louie Inc. Like, he's done his research, but of course he would do that in order to buddy up the bosses and all that good stuff. So it's well performed. In the original, he was, I think, Russian, and the thing about Russians is their cadences are very harsh in a lot of places, and stereotypical to have a Russian bad guy. Like, come on. So I like this change. It's very well done. As, Bulba is determined to, crush any misgivings that Scrooge has about what he's heard about what Bulba is doing. Meanwhile, we pick up at the top of the St. Canard Bridge, which is the lair of Darkwing Duck, and oh man, so much nostalgia washed over me. And he has the bike with his face on it. So cool, so awesome. And we even see that he has his own Darkwing computer with this AI called Wanda. And, Launchpad is all in, being like, okay, what villains have you faced? Or who will you be facing? And he has literal cards of the various different Darkwing Duck villains. Unfortunately, ever since the new mayor took over, crime has been at a rate of zero in St. Canard, honestly. But, as Dewey starts to lose interest, DW is all about, like, keep that camera on me. I'll show you what crime I can fight in St. Canard. So, he's very much has the ego going down, but it's very underplayed for this character. With previous Darkwing Duck, it was obvious ego. So, it was so at the forefront, but I think they toned it down to make sure that he seems very sympathetic and you care for the character as a whole. But Bulba introduces the Ramrod, which, I have some feelings about that name. But she uses a special key to access, which has the ability to apparently create something out of nothing, which questionable, very questionable. But as DW surveys the city, he sees, what's this? People looting a house? He goes in, takes them down fairly handily. Like, this dude knows his combat, only to find out they're movers. And he, as an apology for beating their faces in, brings in the rest of the stuff for them. So, I mean, at least there's that. But DW's at a loss. It's just like, I'm trying, but there's no crime in St. Canard. How can I prove myself a hero if there's no crime? Only for them to immediately see some little girl breaking into McDuck Enterprises, trying to steal the key to the Ramrod. And as DW manages to capture her, it's not other than Goslin. In the original series, she was an orphan and all this, and DW met her because she was captured by Taurus Bulba because he wanted the Ramrod plans that her grandfather, Dr. Waddlemeyer, had left behind. She wanted access to the Ramrod, and in that series, the Ramrod was able to control gravity, not reality. So, very interesting change up here, but. It's interesting that she's trying to go after Bulba. It's a nice flip on things, as she feels that Bulba, will be able to tell her where her grandfather is. But she actually manages to escape before the guards come in to see who's broken in to McDuck Enterprises. And, McDuck comes in, vouches for Dewey and Launchpad, but not Darkwing, because for some reason he just really does not like Darkwing Duck. But Taurus Bulba vouches for Darkwing, saying that, oh, he saved my experiment. He's a hero to us all. And we come to find out that Zan Owlsley is actually the mayor of St. Canard. Like, what? To go from being not so much, Glomgold's business partner, but he called him his assistant, but she became mayor of St. Canard and made crime basically virtually non-existent in the city. Very impressive. Nice come up. But Huey is stuck on the fact that the Ramrod can create something out of nothing. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. You can't create something out of nothing. Matter has to come from somewhere, but cartoon logic, I mean, you could just roll with it, but Darkwing is basking in his newfound success, even appearing on the legendary show Dewey Tonight. But Goslin breaks in, and it's just like, oh, okay, so this is where you're at. She figured it out because of the saltwater residue on Darkwing's suit, but also because Dewey is live streaming, so she kind of figured it out. So it's just like, yeah, okay, yeah, the lack of planning in the fact that Dewey, who just can't shut up, is basically showing everything to everyone, raises a lot of questions. But when Goslin demands that Darkwing help her in exposing Taurus Bulba, she gives the whole backstory that her dad, well, her grandpa, Dr. Waddlemeyer, was a great inventor who was under Taurus Bulba, but he found some kind of flaw in the ramrod, and when he went to go talk to Taurus Bulba, he disappeared. But while DW sympathizes with her situation, he ultimately has her on 2 counts of breaking and entering, and Taurus Bulba, there's no evidence against him. So he's just like, why am I going to risk everything for you when you have no proof, you have no evidence, you have nothing to go off of? But Gosling calls him out on simply just wanting to keep his fame and popularity, his self absorbed nature. But Dewey, in a great character moment, empathizes with Gosling's situation of wanting to find a relative that nobody thinks is actually out there anymore, who everyone else has given up on, and how strong it can be to just be believed in, to have a little faith in the mission that they're going after. Great character moment. Fantastic. And speaking of which, Launchpad really shows off why it's just like, while it's great to have him over in the DuckTales world, here he's actually kind of needed. He gives Darkwing this kind of pep talk saying, look, you know, it's great that you want to be a hero and all that stuff, but isn't just believing in a little girl, helping out someone in need, that's what Darkwing Duck would do. Just having a little faith and believing them where no one else actually will. So, Darkwing thinks about that for a moment, remembering his past and how, just having someone, saving someone, doing something for the little guy is what DW is all about. Meanwhile, Huey kind of confronts Bulba about the situation with the ramrod, questioning how it's able to work. And even Scrooge, in another great character moment, is just like, okay, yeah, I tend to trust Huey's judgment on a lot of things. So tell me what's up with the ramrod. Where are the plans? And Bulba decides to show them to it. However, at the same time, DW and crew were trying to find the plans to the ramrod or some evidence to show that he somehow was able to just dispose of Dr. Waddlemeyer and take over everything for the most part. So Taurus Bulba shows them the index to the file room where the plans for the ramrod actually are, and he actually figures out that Darkwing is in the office, which I'm just like, how did you know? How did you know he was there? And ultimately, DW just comes right on out and asks him about Dr. Waddlemeyer. It's just like, okay, who is this guy? What's up? Just give me the skinny. And Bulba kind of just says that, oh, yes, it's such a tragic story. Waddlemeyer was my friend and a great, brilliant scientist, but he came raving to me about a problem with the ramrod, and I told him no, all that. He tampered with it. Ultimately, it atomized him. He's gone. I covered it up so he wouldn't be a quack. Duck puns. But, of course, Gosling doesn't believe him, ultimately heading down to the ramrod, taking the key with her. But when Darkwing, says, look, kid, I get what you're going through, but, doing this won't bring your grandpa back. But Gosling disagrees. As Huey goes over the plans to the ramrod, he realizes that it is, in fact, a part of Sol Galeo's circuit, one of the lost artifacts of Isabella Finch. Solego was actually a brilliant scientist who had a theory about creation that would be able to open up dimensional portals, which I think is fantastic, but because Solego was actually the name of an immortal wizard in a story called The Legend of the Chaos God, which was a massive crossover with Tailspin, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, Goof Troop, DuckTales, and Darkwing Duck. And I think that's fantastic that they're referencing that. An ancient wizard with an amulet. Is it obvious why they didn't use that? Who ended up, in Tailspin, he possessed Rebecca Cunningham. In Rescue Rangers, he possessed Gidget, then Dale, then Fat Cat. And then in Goof Troop, he possessed, of all things, Pete's car, which is a pretty nice car, honestly. And then he ends up controlling over in Darkwing Duck and DuckTales, Gizmo Duck's suit. And ultimately, he ends up being defeated by Darkwing Duck, and his amulet is sealed away away in the money bin of Scrooge McDuck. So that's the whole situation there, FYI. But ultimately, those rifts in dimensions are unstable, and it's getting a little Spider-Verse in here, honestly, with dimensional portals, a rich businessman, trying to open them up in order to just, gain what he wants and all that. Just putting it out there, all things considered. But Taurus Bulba ultimately confronts Darkwing and Goslin, saying that ultimately the Ramrod malfunctioned and it ended up flinging Dr. Waddlemeyer to an alternate reality. Who knows where it could be? But Darkwing's just like, wait, just a moment ago you said he was atomized and the Ramrod worked perfectly. What's the truth here? And he's just like, okay, you got me. He just goes full villain. It's just like, okay, now I'm just gonna fling you into a different dimension. But Goslin removes the Ramrod key. It starts to overload. Taurus Bulba gets injured, and it full on scars him, much in a way that, because in the Darkwing Duck series, Taurus Bulba is involved in a situation where he becomes a cyborg, and it strikes over the one part of his face that turns into a cyborg. It's fantastic. But Taurus Bulba goes after Goslin. Darkwing comes to her rescue. She gets knocked off some scaffolding. He saves her with a quick plan by Goslin as well to, make sure he glides, a callback to the beginning of the episode. And while Launchpad, manages to catch them as well, and they celebrate everything that went on, Taurus Bulba has escaped with the Ramrod key. And as Scrooge, Louie, and Huey end up meeting up with Dewey, because gotta have them together so that the real trio of Darkwing Duck can have their time in the spotlight. They meet up, and they go after Bulba to have him shut things down. But he's gone full villain, not willing to accept the risks that such a creation could have. Channeling into the world of the Darkwing Duck series, bringing in the fearsome four of Quackerjack, Megavolt, the Liquidator, and Bushroot, who is mute throughout this entire thing, but I think that might be a callback to the fact that his voice actor tragically passed some time ago, and thus ending Part 1. We then switch over to Part 2, titled A Case of Mistaken Reality, where the villains have taken no time in just completely taking over St. Canard, with Bushroot completely capturing the St. Canard Bridge, with Gizmo Duck showing up in order to try to, prune this plant, and Zan Owlson calling out for the help of Darkwing Duck, since these are his villains. We also see that Scrooge and the triplets have all gone missing. But Darkwing's just like, dude, there are too many villains, I don't think I can do this. Goslin's like, dude, we gotta get in there, we gotta do what we can. Fenton tries to call over, asking for a little help, considering the predicament that he's in, and Darkwing Duck, of course, ignoring him because that rivalry. It's just like, ooh, Darkwing wants to be the best hero around. Blah, 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 blah. Very nice callback, all things considered, of the animosity between Darkwing Duck and Gizmo Duck. Which is only there because ultimately Darkwing feels threatened by the abilities of Gizmo Duck, but Goslin tries her best to convince DW that he's got this. They shouldn't be able to take all these villains down, but in a montage which shows off the various villains, going after Bonkers from the old Bonkers cartoon show from the Disney Afternoon as well, which, nice. Once again, I love this. I watched that as a kid. It's fantastic. She feels that they should be able to take them down. And while Darkwing isn't sure about involving a kid in all this, Launchpad knows all too well the resourcefulness of children. And when an alert comes on that they've located where Quackerjack can be found, Darkwing relents, and he heads off with everyone, though he plans to be safe, much to the dismay of Goslin. And Bulba locks away the kids. It's just like, yeah, okay, I don't really care anymore if everything goes to pot. I'm gone full villain now. Let's do this thing. But we actually have an appearance by Bradford in person, where we turns out that Bulba was indeed a part of Fowl of all things, which took me off guard because I'm just like, really, dang. Now that's the connection there. Of course, they wouldn't have Bradford involved with an episode and not actually have it tie back into Fowl. And Boba justifies what he's been doing, saying this is a perfect opportunity to take over the world. But Bradford on that shit of like, dude, we are not villains. This is not how we do things. Low key, man, low key. But Bulba is, again, full villain now. He's just like, no, this is the way I do things. Completely cutting all ties with Fowl, deciding he'll create his own villainous organization. And the Liquidator's just like, okay, so, I guess our first plan should be to kill Darkwing Duck, and Bulba's just like, yes, exactly, go do that. So, as Darkwing and the crew spy on Quackerjack, Bradford is broken out by the triplets, who think that ultimately he's just there because he feels that this whole entire venture is going to cost McDuck Industries a lot of money. But he also contacts Black Heron to have an extraction, not trusting the triplets to get him out of danger. So, as Darkwing ends up being chased down by a massive Quackerjack mech, try saying that 3 times fast, they hide away in order to, try not to get crushed. With DW still saying that, dude, we can't take on all of this. It's too much. It's too much to handle. And Gosling still insisting that, he needs to just get in there and fight, only to be confronted by the Liquidator. And as Huey, Dewey, and Louie try their best to find their way out, they find that the only way through is through Bushroot. And as they try to get through the area with Bushroot in it, Bradford loses it as he almost gets pulled in, ultimately spouting out that, the situation with Magica, the moon invasions, this whole kerfluffle where the dimensions are about to be disrupted is all because of you ducks. You constantly create issues and you don't deserve what you have, which immediately cues in Huey as Bradford tries his best to kind of just um, pass this off, say, no, 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 it's no big thing. That was just me not having my medicine and all that good stuff. But Huey knows something is up. As Darkwing heads home after a tussle with the Liquidator, Gosling is determined to get back out there, but Drake, he's tired. He needs a rest. You know, and while Gosling does admit to Launchpad later that she knows that she's being a little too hard on him, it's revealed that Darkwing has been spending sleepless nights working with Fenton. Yeah, exactly. That you should be cued in by how surprising it is that he's doing this to try to figure out a way of using the ramrod to get Gosling's grandpa's back. But Fenton admits that the only way is it's too unstable. If it's used one more time, it could have, disastrous repercussions. They have to stop it. But DW doesn't accept that. But Gosling, seeing how hard he's been working to try to save her grandpa, tells DW to have a rest, as they all just kind of, just take a moment to rest up. But as the ramrod is activated one last time, DW sets out alone, much to the surprise of the villains who are just like, wait, no flashy entrance? He's just walking up to the door? That's weird. Just a call out on his usual entrances. But that's how you know a moment is serious, when he's not all about the pomp and circumstance. And he confronts the villains and immediately gets his butt handed to him, with Gosling viewing all of this on the monitor as she has just been awoken by Launchpad. But Gosling realizes that Launchpad has a great amount of knowledge of all of Darkwing's villains, and they want to use that. And so, as the triplets and Bradford arrive, Bradford sees that Scrooge has been transported into the DuckTales universe, oddly enough, complaining that sea monster ate his ice cream, which is actually something from the original series that was just an offhanded showing of how weird the old series could actually be. But Bradford comments on the fact that, this, about how alternate reality shenanigans and all this, if only he had been able to stop the ramrod. And he's just talking to himself, and it immediately clues in the triplets that, okay, this guy is up to no good. But he just chucks them right through the portal. It's just like, okay, yeah, whatever. Chucks them through the portal into the DuckTales universe where they have very round heads. And meanwhile, Launchpad and Goslin dress up as two minor villains in Darkwing Duck, Jambalaya Jake and the Bugmaster. Very small time villains. And Quackerjack kind of lets them in. It's just like, okay, whatever. And the more the merrier. As Bradford tries his best to get the key out and escape, he's unable to and just runs off. As Bulba gets ready to introduce himself as the new leader of the world, threatening everyone, planning on destroying Darkwing Duck in order to show off his new invention. And as Goslin kind of loses faith in the ability that they in actually trying to take down all of these guys, Launchpad says, hey, that's the thing about being a hero, overcoming adversity. So they throw down some smoke balls, and Launchpad frees Darkwing. He confronts the villains, and Bulba, wanting to film Darkwing's destruction to the world, sends the villains out after them. And a showdown begins with all of our heroes going in. As Goslin goes over to, access the ramrod in order to get her grandpa back, just searching through various different realities to try to find them. Darkwing and Launchpad deal with the villains, very much referencing how they wish it was like the episode of Darkwing Duck, Just Us, Justice Ducks, my favorite episode in Darkwing Duck, where various villains had come together and all these heroes had to come together in order to defeat them. It's a very similar setup to this, but whereas Taurus Bulba is leading this team, in the original series it was the Fearsome Five led by none other than Negaduck. So nice callback to all that good stuff. But through some grit and determination, they're able to take down the bad guys, with Taurus Bulba going in to deal with things himself. Goslin is able to rescue Scrooge and the triplets, who question, what the heck does quackaroony mean? A nice callback to the fact that the triplets from the original DuckTales series used to say that all the time. Quackaroony! But as Dewey tries to tell Goslin to keep searching, Huey says no, leaving the portal open any longer would be disastrous. But Goslin continues to just try to find her grandpa. And as Darkwing tussles with Bulba, he says, keep trying, keep searching, do what you can to find him. Ultimately, she decides that it's too risky, going in to try to destroy the machine. Bulba pleads with Goslin, saying, no, we can create a new reality. We can find your grandpa. We can even create you a new grandpa. But Goslin knows what she has to do. She sends a surefire shot into the ramrod, destabilizing the portal, sucking all the villains back in, and it's destroyed. Goslin has lost her only means of finding her grandpa. But, then Huey alerts everyone that, where's Bradford? As they see him escaping on a marked foul helicopter, with Bradford even commenting, why aren't you in an unmarked helicopter? Why are you cluing them into our plans? And Bradford just drops all pretenses, saying, we're coming after your money, McDuck. Get ready. You don't deserve anything that you have. And Scrooge just full on is standing up to the challenge. It means that, a lot of villains have been under their nose this whole time, and they're finally clued into all of it. And as Gizmo Duck finally gets through all of Bush Roots, he is celebrated as a hero. Drake, tells Gosling that, Launchpad knows a lot of scientists, will continue to try to get your grandpa back, but in the meantime, he invites her to be his ward. Basically, the Robin to his Batman. And as, Dewey tells Launchpad, go to them. They are your family as well. And he declares that he will spend his days in Duckburg, but his nights in St. Canard, sleeping as he drives between, which I could fully believe. And that was always the question about how Launchpad could be in two separate series. It's just like, aren't you over in Duckburg? How are you in St. Canard as well? That's the answer. He just sleeps on his drive over, which I could fully believe, giving its Launchpad, creating the new Duck family. And so, as an alert of crime goes off, the trio set off to get dangerous one more time. A fantastic episode. Just so good, so great. I loved this special. It was phenomenal. The characterization, the heart, the love. Very reminiscent of the two-parter that started Darkwing Duck, where he had to save Goslin from Taurus Bulba and a deadly device. It's a recreation of that first episode, but man, what a great job they do tying it into DuckTales and all that good stuff. It is phenomenal. I loved DW. I loved the reimagining of Goslin, the reimagining of Taurus Bulba, the arrival of the four villains, Quackerjack, Bushroot, the Liquidator, Megavolt. They didn't really do too much, all things considered, but they were still fun characters nonetheless. And I had an amazing time with this. It's hard to pick a great moment, and not to mention Fowl. Bradford outing himself as a member of Fowl, just of all things for it to be introduced into. But hey, why not? Fowl is just as much a part of Darkwing Duck as it is DuckTales. More so Darkwing Duck, but I love the connection. I love the continued connection of all these series. And even though this is the last season, I really I really do hope they adapt some of this for the Darkwing Duck reboot. But tell me your thoughts in the comment section below. What did you feel towards this crossover episode? Did you love it? Did you hate it? And what's your memories of Darkwing Duck? Are you a Darkwing Duck fanboy like me? Or are you new to the character? And how did this special make you feel? Tell me that and more in the comment section below. And until next time, I've been Duuz-Diz-Din. Like, comment, subscribe, bell, all that good stuff. And until next time, I will see you later.